Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. My reading week has not gone as planned at all. My original plan was to read two books that have been longlisted for the 2023 Kindle History Prize. Red Memory by Tania Branigan and American Midnight by Adam Hochschild. So the Kindle Prize is a literary prize that awards excellence in history writing. It runs from sometime in August for the long list, which is 16 books, to a short list at the end of September, which is down to 8. And then towards the end of October, it's a finalist list of 3. And then the final winner is announced at the end of November or beginning of December, roughly. This year seems to be running a bit earlier, particularly for the long list announcements. So anyway, so I picked up, so I made a reaction video to the long list, and I have subsequently picked up 5 of the long listed books. And I've had goes at 3 of them. Unfortunately, both Red Memory and American Midnight are, for the moment, bails. So, Red Memory by Tania Branigan is an exploration of how the people who Branigan interviewed during her years as a correspondent for The Guardian in China kind of processed their experiences as victims and as perpetrators of the Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution was a 10-year period of directed anarchy initiated by Mao to further cement his control of the Chinese Communist Party, and also to sort of create his ideal state. And in that 10-year period, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people died. People were displaced, tortured, brutalized, humiliated. It was just a horrible period. And after the Cultural Revolution, after Mao's death, talking about it, kind of processing it, sort of was never really done. Instead, the continued economic development as China began to reform economically became sort of the medicine, I guess, or the relief from it. So the book is divided into chapters focused on a number of interviewees. Usually, up until I bailed, most of the interviews were with just one individual, although there are some chapters in which multiple survivors are interviewed. So the book does look at how at these interviewees' experiences during the survivors' experiences during the Cultural Revolution, as well as their experiences after, up to the present. And there are numerous passages about contemporary China, particularly how Bo Xilai tried to use Mao's techniques to further his political career, how Xi Jinping has sort of his rise to power, and that sort of thing. So I mean, the book's okay, but there's just something off about it, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. So I'm going to
give it a break, and if it makes the shortlist, I might come back to it, and if it doesn't, then I'll come back to it at some point further down the road. Because I don't know if it's just there's something weird about the writing, or just I really wasn't in the mood for this book at this time. I don't know. And that's pretty, I mean, except for the weirdness, the same thing for American Midnight, which is a look at the United States in World War I and the years after, and how the war and subsequent years saw an erosion of American civil liberties. Basically, the right to free speech, the right to assembly, the right to protest were all abrogated in support of the war effort, and later fear of a communist influence after the Russian Revolution. So the book looks at a number of instances of how people who opposed the war, who were not politically palatable for the authorities, were mistreated. And it's an okay popular history. The chapters are rather short, or most of them are. But just I don't know. I really wasn't just in it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think, like, okay, let's back up. Okay. So I don't quite know why, but the book just didn't do it for me. So again, I'm going to put it on the back burner, and I'll come back to it in a few months, whether it makes the short list or maybe later. I don't know. We'll see. But that does raise the question about whether or not I do follow the Kundal Prize for this year, because I mean, I've dipped into 3 of the long-listed, and they haven't really done it for me in one way, shape, or form. So I don't know if it's a product of overindulging in history the last few weeks, or if it's just these books really aren't for me. I don't know. So I'm going to give them some space, and I'll come back to them, and we'll see. So anyway, so the rest of my reading week has been pretty good. So I'm going to go with the poetry, because I read 4 volumes of poetry. I reread for the 3rd time Wonderama by Catherine Doty. So this is a collection that is centered around or inspired by Paterson, New Jersey. And the poems are very visceral, very personal, and they're rather good, but not spectacular. And the reason why I reread Wonderama, and I'm thinking of rereading some of the other poetry collections that I don't really talk a whole lot about, is to see whether or not I want to keep them the next time I do Purge. I also read After Callimachus by Stephanie Burt. This is a Bell redemption, because I had to go at this collection a few months ago after I bought it. But I put it aside, and I came back to it on Sunday, and it was amazing. I really enjoyed it. There are some fantastic poems. So this collection is inspired by the work of Callimachus, an ancient Greek poet. So these aren't exactly translations as reimaginings. modernizations, and they are amazing. They had an effect on me that I'm still processing, but this was fantastic. I also read collected poems by C.B. Cavafy, translated by Edmund Keeley and Philip Sherrard. So this collects the work of a Greek-Egyptian poet from Alexandria who lived in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and it was fantastic. I loved this collection. It was something I needed. There's a really annoying thing that happened this week, and this collection really helped me sort of get over it. So it was great. I needed this. And I also read on the same day that it came in, Within the Sweet Noise of Life by Sandro Penna, translated by Alexander Booth. So Sandro Penna was an Italian poet who worked in the early 20th century, and this is a really good collection, although the poems are much shorter than I thought they would be, but it was a great reading experience, so I really enjoyed this one as well. Now, I'm not going to go into too much more detail about the poetry because I really stink at talking about poetry except saying I liked it or I didn't like it. And the rubric by which I like or dislike a poem is idiosyncratic to me. So I also read 3 volumes of manga, and if it weren't for the fact that I am the next few months going to be pretty much buying a whole slew of history books, I would probably be getting back into manga binge, because these 3 volumes were fantastic. I read 2 volumes of Jujutsu Kaisen by Gege Akutami. I read volume 0, which is a prequel or prologue to the main series. So Jujutsu Kaisen is a manga series. It's currently one of the more popular ones. It's about a young man named Yuji Itadori who one day he joins a school club which is centered around the occult, and his classmates, his fellow club members, find a rotten finger. This finger belonged to an evil sorcerer named Ryomen Sukuna. A cursed spirit, a monster, attacks the school, and a young Jujutsu sorcerer named Megumi comes to fight the cursed spirit. But Megumi's having a hard time, and Yuji takes the finger and gobbles it up. He swallows it. And this allows Sukuna to temporarily possess Yuji. And together, Yuji and Megumi defeat the cursed spirit. And then the Sukuna possessed Yuji attacks Megumi. Megumi is saved by his teacher Gojo, who subdues Sukuna, and once Yuji wakes up, he's informed that he's to be executed. But Gojo manages to belay that with an agreement that Yuji will consume the other fingers of Sukuna, 20 of them, and once that's done, once all of Sukuna has been consumed by Yuji, then they'll kill Yuji. So Yuji is enrolled in a school for Jujutsu sorcerers, the Tokyo branch of Jujutsu High, and he basically goes on a number of adventures, and I'll talk a bit more about the current state of the series in a second, because this is the prologue. So the prologue focuses on a character who is introduced relatively late in Jujutsu Kaisen's run, Yuta Okutsu. So Yuta is a young man much like Yuji. He is a cursed individual. He has a vengeful cursed spirit named Rika that's attached itself to him. Rika in life was a childhood friend of Yuta's who died tragically, and they had promised to basically, when they grew up, they would marry. So Yuta gets the same treatment that Yuji got and is enrolled in Jujutsu High, although without the execution part. So the 4 chapters that make up Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 0 features a character named Geto, who is a rogue Jujutsu sorcerer who would like to wipe out humanity in favor of the sole existence of Jujutsu sorcerers. And he has his eye on Yuta because of Rika. So Yuta and his classmates, who are supporting characters in Jujutsu Kaisen proper, sort of get tricked into a fight, and Geto goes to attack the school, and he is ultimately defeated. And Yuta kind of comes to terms with his powers, and pretty much the start of how he becomes such a badass in the main series. This was really fun. I enjoyed these 4 chapters. It was great. Find some really cool pictures because I like to show pictures. That. And it was amazing. And I also like how a lot of the characters look different from how they would in the main series. That was really cool. There was Yuta and Rika. It was great. And I also read the most recent release of Jujutsu Kaisen Volume 20. So, this volume is a continuance of the Culling Game arc. So, in the aftermath of the Shibuya incident, which took place a few months ago in the series timeline, the villain Kenjaku, who is an old ancient sorcerer, or that's what he seems to be, has created a series of domains in what's left of Tokyo and other Japanese cities, in which sorcerers, cursed individuals, reincarnated sorcerers are all activated and basically set to killing each other for Kenjaku's amusement, and to really sort of create the world that Kenjaku wants. So the main characters, who are now Yuji, Megumi, and Yuta, have infiltrated these colonies. So this volume begins with the wrap-up of Megumi's fight with a character named Reggie, who is one of these reawakened sorcerers. And then the rest of the volume is Yuta and Sendai trying to defeat some powerful sorcerers. Amongst them, Ryu, who is the muscular man on the cover. And it basically turns into a 4-way brawl. After Yuta defeats... so the Sendai colony has 4 powerful figures. Yandala, who is fairly quickly dispatched. Ryu... see here. Oh yeah, here we go. So it's Lakdawala, who is very quickly wiped out, and then Ryu, Uro, and Kurorushi, who's basically a cursed cockroach. So I'll show you the 4. And that's a wonderful image at the end of Megumi's fight with Reggie, which comes back later. So that is Lakdawala, and that's Ryu. Uro and Kuro. And it is just, yeah. That. And it was a really awesome series of fights. It's like, and I really like Yuta's look. It's really good. And I like how the progression of the fight, how it was really good. See that? So yeah, I had a lot of fun with these 2 volumes. Okay, and I also read volume 1 of YuYu Hakusho by Yoshihiro Togashi. So YuYu Hakusho is one of the classics of shonen manga. It's came out in the early 90s. It's the story of a young man named Yusuke Urameshi, who is a junior high delinquent, who in the first chapter dies trying to save a young boy from being run over by a car. This death was unexpected, and Yusuke is given a chance to come back from the dead if he performs the trial. And while he's waiting for this trial to complete itself, he has encounters with those he knew in life. And he basically sort of, in these chapters, helps some of them out with various problems that they have, including a rival of his named Kuwabara. There's a lonely ghost and a crotchety old man who helped a tanuki. So further into the series, Yusuke becomes a spirit detective who works for Koenma, and he gradually builds a team, and stuff happens. It's been a long time since I've looked into YuYu Hakusho, and I really enjoyed this first volume, although it's a very different from the later volumes, which I have read. I've read the series from some point in the Dark Tournament arc through to the end. So at some point, the series becomes more tournament-oriented, more villainous plans-oriented from what it is right now. And I'm seriously contemplating picking up the next 2 volumes soonish. I just don't know when. So that's basically what I read this past week. Today and over the weekend, I'm planning on reading Young Queens by Leah, Redmond, Chang. This is a new release. It came out just this past Tuesday, and I'm quite looking forward to it, and I will report back next week. So after I finish Young Queens, I don't know exactly what I want to read. It might be some more manga. It might be some more poetry that I'm wanting to have a second or third looks at, and it could be some shorter works of fiction, I don't know. I haven't quite decided. I'll report back next Friday with next week's weekly reads. As far as next week's videos are concerned, I do want to make some. I was thinking about doing a video on the Kondo Prize. That's largely why I didn't make any videos on Wednesday and Thursday. I was wanting to make that video and it just didn't quite work out. And I think in part it was how much of it was going to also be a bit of a book haul, because I do have 5 books from the long list. The 3 that I've looked at for I've read or bailed on, and I've got 2 more. So I didn't know if I wanted to just do a bail haul for those 5 books, or just talk a bit about it here in weekly reads. I also want to do a video on Shirley September and some September reading plans, which was another video I wanted to make yesterday, and it didn't quite work out. I think in part because it was just going to be talking about the various September reading events here on BookTube rather than including TBRs or possible TBRs. Because I do want to participate in Shirley September and Sumerian September and possibly Space Opera September, although that one's going to be a bit, the prompts and all of that's a bit detailed, so I don't know. And I haven't really picked up any new space opera in a while, so I need to decide on that. Of course, there's also the Kondo Prize and the slew of forthcoming history books that I have on pre-order in September that I would also like to get to relatively quickly, rather than just holding off until after I do my monthly book haul, which leads me to another thought. Should I, going forward after August, instead of doing a monthly book haul, should I do book hauls as they come in and put them on my shelves then, instead of holding them until the end of the month? Because I think one of the reasons why I wait and do like one single large book haul is that I don't read the blurbs on the books. I largely talk about how I got them, why I got them, rather than what the book's about. And I usually wait to talk about that once I've actually read the book, because sometimes the blurbs may not necessarily be all that accurate. But yeah, so I want to think about that a bit. And of course, there'll be some tag videos. I know there's one that's kind of going around that's formed. There's another one. So we'll see. Hopefully I can do about 5 videos next week, but yeah. But if I don't, then I'll miss a few days. But anyway, so I think that's all I got for now. I'm going to go check and see who's been either texting me or what notifications I've got. Could very well be YouTube notifications. But until I see you next week, thank you, BookTube. Have a great rest of your Friday and weekend, and stay safe.